Well, first off, anyone that doesn't live in Florida, welcome to Florida. This is the place to live. I mean, we don't have an income tax. We're a right-to-work state. We're not going to have a business tax soon. We've got we've got absolutely the best weather in the country. We've got the best coastlines, and we've got 18 million hardworking individuals in our state. The people that moved to Florida, if you grew up here, you don't want to become dependent on government. And if you moved here, you moved here because you believe in the American dream and the dream that you could do anything on your own, and that's what Florida's made of. And so it's a great place. Hopefully, anybody that doesn't live here will soon move here. And if you could add about 700,000 jobs, I'd finish what I committed to. So that would be nice for me. So as Bob said, when I organized Conservatives for Patients' Rights, I got real frustrated at the end because 70 plus whatever percent of Americans were against the health care bill, and we had done the right thing with Cato, with a lot of other organizations, and America was absolutely against that bill, and it passed. And so I came to the conclusion what's happening is we don't really elect principled enough individuals and so, because how could you be a conservative, how could you be a fiscal conservative, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, and vote for that bill? How could you care about the health care for Americans when like one of the first things we did was we did a documentary on the Canadian health and the British healthcare system. If you looked at that and then you wanted to do something similar to that, how could you, if you cared about patients, how could you pass that bill? So I decided, which, like Bob said, no one other than Ann and my two daughters probably thought I had a shot. So I announced last April 9th I'd run for governor with the belief that this could be the model for the country. This state could be the model for the country. We have a very conservative legislature, 2/3 majority, Republican majority in the House and the Senate. So with the right leadership, we could do a lot of things in this state to make this the model for the country, and that's what my goal was. So I ran on a very detailed campaign. It said 7 steps to 700,000 jobs. I set out exactly what I was going to do. Each step was going to reduce the size of government. A lot of people, I put my budget out this week, and it's like they didn't read what we put out or didn't see the $80 million of ads we ran. We said, we were going to drive down the size of government. We were going to reduce property taxes. We were going to reduce the business tax. We were going to focus all of our effort on the most important two things I think in government: have a well-educated workforce, get kids an education, and get people a job. If you do those two things, you can change people's lives, and that was the whole focus. So we won November 2nd, and we started putting things to work. I've been in business all my life, and in business you're competing. Every day somebody's trying to beat you. And so if you're not getting better every day, you're gonna go out of business. Somebody's gonna, whatever product or service you provide, you will go out of business. It's the same with countries and states. We have got to do better than what we're doing. So, one of the first things I did was go to the Republican Governors Association meeting, and we were talking to some of the governors, and I told Rick Perry, anything you do in Texas, I'm going to figure out how to do it better in Florida, because I'm competing with you. And we talk about that. I talked to him last week about it. We are absolutely competing. He wants this. We're all going after anybody from Illinois. Thank goodness for your governor, because he raised all your taxes. Because every Republican governor is going after all those companies to move down here. I mean, Rick Perry's doing it, Bob McDonnell's doing it, Scott Walker's doing it, Chris Christie's doing it. We're all doing the same thing. We're competing. And what that's going to do is it's going to make government better. It's going to streamline government. It's going to reduce taxes. Because everybody that got elected realizes that if you don't do it, they're going to move to another state. So it's perfect. It's perfect what's happening. So we're competing not only with 49 other states, but with a variety of other countries where, 20 years ago, people weren't willing to open up companies and put a lot of capital into other countries. They are now. So we're competing with Colombia and Panama and Brazil and China and India, all these places. So if we're a worse place to do business because of regulation or for litigation or for taxes, guess what's going to happen? Those jobs are going to go out of this country. So we have got to compete. And I believe all that competition is going to make us a much better state and a much better country. Now, we are going to win. The state of Florida will win this competition. Because I'm going to do it every day, the legislature's going to do it every day, and we've got some inherent advantages. On top of that, we've got the expansion of the Panama Canal, we've got the expansion of the economies in Central and South America. All these northern states that are freezing right now. Every time I call, I always tell them I'm having to turn down my air conditioning so you can hear me. So I talked to one guy in Illinois, he says, well, I can just walk outside. And it was 5 below when I called him. He's somebody I've known for a long time. So, but we are the state that will win. Now, since I got elected, I was sworn in January 4th. And so since I've gotten elected, here's the things I've focused on. Step one, how do we reduce regulation that's killing jobs? 2, how do we actually hold government more accountable? And more accountable is reduce the cost of government and make it more effective, because that's what people expect. And then 3, what can we do to improve education? Make sure our education is 100% for the benefit of our kids, not for the benefit of a special interest. So the first thing I did was I put in the first executive order said 2 things. 1, I was going to put a freeze on new regulation. Any regulation that was in the hopper, we stopped it until my office reviewed it. So I thought, how many would it be? Wouldn't be a lot. There were 900. 900 that were just in the process. So we stopped that. We said now if you were going to take over a company and you wanted to really get control of how it worked, you would get a control of the pocketbook, right? You'd say, where's all the money being spent? So I said, okay, we're going to look at every contract of over $1 million. So we have gotten control of how the money is being spent in the state. Next, I got Michelle Rhee, who is the chancellor of the school system in DC, to be my education advisor, and she's so she's wonderful. So she flew in at 9:45 and I flew out at 9:15. So we missed each other this morning, but she's testifying in the front of the House and the Senate today in Tallahassee. And her focus is exactly the same as mine. It's students first, and that's the name of her organization. So every decision is what's good for kids. So 1, should superintendents, should principals, should teachers be tested for who's the most effective, and the most effective get treated better financially. Yeah, seems. What would you do in business? That's what you would do. That's 1. What about tenure? I mean, should people if you've been there for 3 years, should be guaranteed your job for the next 25 years? No, that doesn't make any sense. And who's a better judge of where their child should go to school? The school system or a parent? The parent. So we ought to have as much choice as possible. So everything we're doing on education is those things. And the most important is we're going to have a measurement system. We're going to teach the best people in the education system, the best financially, and we're going to create as much choice as we can. Now, surprised everybody, I put out a budget that people said, well, gosh, I didn't realize you were going to do what you said you were going to do. So the first thing we got criticized for is we announced the budget in Eustis to a little over 1,000 Tea Party members, and they couldn't believe that you're supposed to do this in Tallahassee. Not out where people, vote and vote for the right candidates. Matter of fact, I think we did well in Tallahassee, although really. But anyway, we went and did that, and we talked about what we're going to do, and it's all your policies come in through your budget, as you know. So we cut. We have a $3.6 billion budget deficit right now. And all that's because we relied on the federal government. We used the federal government, the stimulus, to plug holes, which we shouldn't have done. But we have a $3.6 billion budget deficit. So our budget cut spending $5.5 billion. But people were shocked that we were doing it. And we said, on top of that, we did a 2-year budget. And so the first year, it's $2 billion in tax cuts. So the tax cuts are 1, which is what we said in the campaign. 1 is we're going to take the business tax from 5.5% down to 3%, and then we're going to phase it out over the next few years. So it'll be 0. We'll be the 4th state that has no business tax. I was talking to an elected official in Iowa, and they were excited because they were going to cut their business tax in half. And I think it was going to go from either 12 or 13% to 6 or 6.5. And I said, yours is higher than ours today. And so what I try to do is as I talk to people, you just take piece by piece by piece, where business people are focused on what they're focused on and say, can we do better than everybody else in the country? Because if we can, then we will clearly get all the jobs here, which is my goal. But the business tax, and on top of that, property taxes. We're cutting property taxes. We're not cutting, the first thing everybody says, okay, then you're cutting state spending for education, and we're not. What we're doing is we're streamlining government. We're taking agencies that should have been put together before. We're putting some agencies together. We're moving some functions where we don't have two different groups collecting revenues. We'll just collect all the revenues that we collect for the state through the Department of Revenue. So we have one group doing it. All those simple things, first year I think saves us a little over $1 billion. So it's all the things you would do in your business, but for a variety of reasons, they didn't happen in government. So we're just doing piece by piece. The thing that's probably the most promising is today, maybe it was for whatever reason, I've been able to get really great people to come run agencies. And everybody says, well, it's hard to get it in state capitals and all those things. But we have, I've got a lady that's going to run juvenile justice. I mean, she's focused on what can you do to get juveniles to where if they're having start with problems, or where they change before they end up in prison. And she's done an unbelievable job in Miami-Dade County, which most people would think, that's not been a great county. She's done an unbelievable job there for 20 years. I got my corrections guy, and there's a lot of money to be saved in corrections, and do a better job. He comes from Mitch Daniels. I think I talked to Governor Daniels, and he said, yeah, that's great, you can hire him. And then I think he did everything he could to keep him. Because this individual, Ed Buss, is really good, and we're going to be able to save money. We're going to be able to do a better job of making sure if people end up in our prison system, when they leave, they're not going to come back. We're going to do a better job of training them for jobs and getting them the skills that they can succeed. But you take piece by piece by piece, and everybody that I'm bringing in, they're measurement oriented. So just like what you do in business, people say, well, you can't run government like a business. And I believe you can. But my view of how you run things like a business is you say, who's the customer? What's the goal? You write it down. You set a measurement system, and then you constantly measure and improve. If it's not working, you keep changing. And you also measure yourself against everybody you're competing with, because they're going to keep doing the same thing against you. So that's what I'm trying to do, just bring in people that just measure the living daylights out of what we're doing every day. So that's where we've come out on the budget. So our session starts, I think it's March 8th. So but we have a legislature that's very supportive so far. So I think it'll go well. The other thing that we're doing is I'm putting a lot of time and effort and money into economic development. Some states have done a great job. Alabama, Mississippi, Texas in particular, those three states have done a really good job of getting companies to move to their states. So whatever they've done, we've got to do a little bit better. So I'm going to allocate some significant resources to that. I'm going to consolidate all of our functions in the state. The guy that's going to run it will office 2 doors down from me, because every day basically I'm calling 5 to 15 companies around the country about why they should do business in the state, and calling companies in Florida about, do they have any issues? Is there any concern that they might leave, or things that I can solve for them, whether it's permitting, things like that. So just to make sure everybody understands that we want jobs. Next, I've spent a reasonable amount of time with different foreign ministers, ambassadors, consuls general. Spent time with President Uribe from Colombia, who you have to admire what he went through and what he accomplished there. But just to focus on how can we get more trade with Florida, and how can we get other countries, their investors to invest in our state? How can we get our companies to sell more there, and if it makes sense for them to sell more to us? So we're going to do a variety of trade missions. I want to make sure the free trade agreements, which I really call fair trade, happen with Panama and Colombia, because there's a lot of jobs. The projection is if we get the one done with Colombia, it's 15,000 jobs, and if we get the one done with Panama, it's 6,300 jobs. So it all adds up to my commitment of 700,000 jobs. So those are the things that we're doing at the state level. Something good happened, I guess, a week or so ago when Judge Vinson declared the Obamacare unconstitutional. Former Attorney General Bill McCollum did a good job with that lawsuit, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who, if you haven't met her, she's going to be a wonderful Attorney General. So they've done a good job, and hopefully we'll get that expedited to the Supreme Court. The real benefit of the Florida ruling with the other states is the fact that Judge Vinson said not only is the mandate unconstitutional, but the whole act is unconstitutional. So that was much better than even the win that we had in Virginia. Since then, what I think they should be doing is they need to they've already passed. We're already being taxed. There's 6 taxes that we're already paying for that bill. They ought to repeal those, and they ought to stop the rollout of the 18 additional taxes and higher fees that are coming for that bill. Because I mean, they called it unconstitutional. So it shouldn't. We're not. The state of Florida. We're not going to put any effort into implementing that. And I think every other state ought to do the same thing. The next focus that we have at the state is trying to make sure everybody in the state understands what debt the state has. Get everybody focused on to make sure that we're going to continue to reduce our commitments that we might have a difficult time making, such as pensions, trying to make sure our cities and counties do the same thing. So with our pensions, my goal is to make sure we have a pension system for the individuals that are relying on that it's a system that they can rely on, that is fully funded. So that's step one. And then step two, it's only fair when most taxpayers, one, don't have a pension plan, but if they have any retirement plan, they're participating in it. So I'm part of my budget is every person that's involved in our pension plan, if they're relying on it, they're going to put up 5% of their compensation, just like all the private sector does. So it's a fair thing to do. So that's basically what we've done. I've been in office 36 days, I think. But it's. I was at the National Governors Association meeting right after the RGA meeting, and 2 governors got up and they started off by saying, "This is the hardest job you can imagine having, and it's so hard on your family." Chris Christie's wife, Mary Pat, got up and said, "We're having a ball," and. Yeah, you really have to admire. You have to admire what he's done, and that's. I think the people who take these jobs, you better go out and have a lot of fun, because you can have a dramatic positive impact on your states and on the nation if our governors will do the right thing. So I just want to finish by there's a lot of friends in the room. There's a lot of people that supported me in this campaign. There's a lot of people that have reached out to me since. I asked people for 2 things. One, I really believe in accountability. I ran on a very detailed plan. If you think I'm straying from that, call, write me. I don't have email because under Florida we have sunshine laws, and every email is basically subject to being in the front page of the New York Times. And so if somebody sends me the wrong thing, it doesn't mean I did anything wrong. I don't want the article. So, but if you think I'm straying for what I committed, call me. But on the other side, if you believe in what I'm doing and what our legislature is doing and our elected officials are doing in the state, write letters, support people, because I can tell you the special interest, they're active. They're showing up every day in Tallahassee. They're going to fight all these changes. But I'm going to stay the course. And if we do the right thing, this is a model for what's going to happen in America. So let me finish and thank you very much for the invitation to be here, and congratulations on what Cato stands for, and what y'all do every day, and the fights you fight, and probably the biggest thing that I always liked about Cato is that they're so logical in their thinking and what they write that it makes it difficult for people on the other side. Because it's pretty logical to me. I don't know why anybody would think the other way. But thank you very much, and thanks for the introduction. All right, bye-bye.